To the casual observer, Hong Kong is a city of steel and glass, a fortress of modern engineering designed to withstand typhoons and density. But underneath the futuristic skyline lies a skeleton of tradition: bamboo scaffolding, a construction technique that dates back centuries, used to build skyscrapers and renovate public housing alike. For decades, safety experts warned that wrapping high-rise towers in dried wood and plastic netting was a gamble. They warned that if the conditions were perfect, if the wind was right and the regulations were ignored, the result wouldn't just be a fire. It would be a massacre. On the afternoon of November 26, 2025, Hong Kong watched in horror as an ordinary renovation project turned into the city's deadliest fire since 1953. 128 lives lost, a community shattered, and a question that demands an answer not in days, but in decades of negligence. This is the full story of how the Wang Fuk Court fire happened, and why, according to the physics and the paperwork, it was waiting to happen. To understand the tragedy at Wang Fuk Court, we have to understand the DNA of Hong Kong's public housing. The city's entire public housing program was born from fire. On Christmas night in 1953, the Shek Kip Mei squatter settlement burned to the ground, leaving 53,000 people homeless. That disaster birthed the resettlement blocks, concrete bunkers designed to be fireproof. Density was prioritized over comfort, and for a long time it worked. But concrete ages. By the 1980s, the government began building the home ownership scheme estates. Wang Fuk Court was completed between 1982 and 1988. It consists of 8 residential towers, housing nearly 4,800 souls. These are not luxury condos. They are compact, efficiency-focused units, averaging 40 to 60 square meters. Crucially, the demographic here is elderly. According to the 2021 census, nearly 40% of the residents were over the age of 65. Many had lived there since the buildings opened. These were their forever homes. But the buildings were showing their age. The tessera tiles on the exterior were falling off, a common issue in Hong Kong's humid climate. So, in July 2024, a massive renovation contract was signed, a 330 million Hong Kong dollars project to retile the facades. To do this, contractors did what they always do in Hong Kong. They built a cage. Bamboo scaffolding is a cultural icon. It's cheap, it's flexible, and it can be erected without heavy machinery. But biologically, bamboo is dried grass. It is fuel. To protect the streets from falling debris, the bamboo is wrapped in green nylon netting. And to protect the residents from dust, the windows are often sealed with plastic sheets or styrofoam boards. By November 2025, Wang Fuk Court wasn't just 8 apartment blocks. It was 8 chimney stacks, wrapped in thousands of tons of dried wood and plastic mesh, connected by bamboo bridges, waiting for a spark. And on a dry Tuesday afternoon, with the humidity dropping below 50% and the northeast monsoon blowing steadily, that spark arrived. We are now moving into the minute-by-minute timeline of the disaster. The following account is reconstructed from fire services logs, verified social media timestamps, and resident testimony. It begins at Block F. It's 2:51 p.m. A worker on the lower scaffolding levels is reportedly welding a bracket. Or perhaps, as some forensic reports suggest, a cigarette is discarded carelessly. We likely won't know for sure until the coroner's court rules. What we do know is that a piece of hot debris lands in the fold of the green safety netting. This netting is supposed to be fire retardant. It is supposed to self-extinguish. It does not. Within 60 seconds, the fire begins to climb. This is where the physics of the scaffolding betray the building. The gap between the concrete wall and the netting acts as a flue. Fresh oxygen is sucked in from the bottom, feeding the flames, pushing them upward at a velocity that defies belief. Residents on the 10th floor report smelling burning plastic. By the time they look out their windows, the fire has already raced past them to the 20th. At 3 p.m., just 9 minutes after ignition, the fire services department upgrades the incident to a number 3 alarm. But the fire is faster than the response protocols. This is a phenomenon known as fire rain. The polyethylene netting and the styrofoam window seals aren't just burning, they are melting. Liquefied, burning plastic drips down the facade, igniting the bamboo on the lower levels that hadn't caught fire yet. The building is now burning from the bottom up, and the top down. Then the wind takes over. The northeast monsoon, funneling through the topography of Tai Po, hits the burning face of Block F. At 3:34 p.m., the unthinkable happens. The scaffolding of Block F and Block G is connected by bridges, temporary bamboo walkways for workers to move between towers. The fire uses these bridges like a fuse, but it doesn't even need them. The radiant heat is so intense, estimated at over 50 kilowatts per square meter, that the netting on the neighboring Block G spontaneously ignites across the 15-meter gap. It is a contagion, a viral transmission of heat. Block F infects Block G. Block G infects Block H. By late afternoon, 7 of the 8 towers are burning. Inside the apartments, thousands of people are realizing that the fireproof concrete box they live in has just been wrapped in a convection oven. While the spectacle outside was horrific, the reality inside was claustrophobic terror. Mrs. Chan, a resident of Block G, described the moment she realized she couldn't leave. "I opened the front door, and the corridor was black," she told reporters. The smoke wasn't gray. It was thick, oily black. It tasted like chemicals. This is the cruelty of the renovation. The styrofoam boards used to seal the windows for dust protection didn't keep the fire out. They fueled it. As the heat shattered the glass, the styrofoam ignited, pouring toxic, superheated smoke directly into the living rooms. Entering this hellcape were the men and women of the Hong Kong Fire Services Department. Among them was Senior Station Officer Ho Wai-ho. Firefighters were facing temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Their gear is rated for high heat, but not for standing inside a blast furnace. Crews were forced to carry heavy hoses up stairwells that had become chimneys, fighting against a stampede of residents trying to flee down. One survivor, pulled from the 16th floor nearly 18 hours after the fire started, described the firefighters as ghosts in the smoke. They were finding residents huddled in bathrooms, sealing the gaps under doors with wet towels, a tactic that saved hundreds of lives. It wasn't just humans. The SPCA and Red Cross later confirmed the rescue of 25 animals. But for many, the escape routes were cut off too quickly. The tragedy of Wang Fuk Court is that for the elderly residents on the upper floors, the elevators were death traps and the stairs were impossible. They were trapped in the sky, waiting for a rescue that, for at least 128 of them, would not arrive in time. We need to talk about the physics. Why did this fire spread so fast? To understand it, look at a fireplace. You have the fire, and you have the chimney. The chimney encloses the heat, creates a pressure difference, and pulls air upwards. This is the stack effect. Now, imagine the chimney is the entire side of a 30-story building. The bamboo scaffolding and the green netting created a false facade. A gap of about 30 to 50 centimeters between the concrete wall and the plastic mesh. When the fire started at the bottom, it heated the air in this gap. Hot air rises. As it rose, it sucked in fresh, cold air from the bottom at a rate of 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. This turned the scaffolding into a vertical wind tunnel. You will hear comparisons to Grenfell Tower in London. And the physics are similar, but the materials are different. Grenfell was clad in aluminum composite material with a polyethylene core, solid fuel. Wang Fuk Court was wrapped in netting and bamboo. This is where the criminal negligence comes in. The netting is supposed to adhere to safety standards. It should be flame retardant. It should just melt and drop away without sustaining a flame. But preliminary forensic analysis suggests the netting used at Wang Fuk melted at around 250 degrees Celsius and continued to burn, dripping flaming liquid plastic onto the bamboo below. While the external chimney effect destroyed the outside, the internal stack effect killed the residents. The heat differential between the fire and the cool interior created a pressure vacuum. Smoke didn't just drift into the hallways. It was pumped in under pressure, turning elevator shafts into smoke superhighways. Once the windows failed, the apartments reached flashover point, where everything in a room ignites simultaneously, in under 3 minutes. No sprinkler system could have stopped an external assault of this magnitude. But Wang Fuk Court, built before 1987, didn't even have sprinklers in the residential units to begin with. While the embers were still cooling, the Hong Kong Police Force and the Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, were already moving. This was no longer a rescue mission. It was a crime scene investigation. 3 days after the fire, police arrested 2 directors of the construction company and a senior engineering consultant. The charge they are investigating is manslaughter. The investigation is peeling back the layers of Hong Kong's renovation industry. It's a world of subcontracting upon subcontracting. The company that wins the 330 million Hong Kong dollars bid rarely does the work. They hire a subcontractor, who hires a subcontractor, who hires day laborers. Somewhere in that chain, a decision was made. A decision to buy the cheaper netting. A decision to skip the fire retardant coating on the bamboo. A decision to let workers smoke on the scaffolding despite resident complaints dating back to September 2024. These complaints were logged. They were filed. And it appears they were ignored. The raid on the engineering firm's offices confirmed what many suspected. The gross negligence wasn't an accident. It was a budget line item. The numbers are cold, but the reality is heartbreaking. The confirmed death toll stands at 128. Identification has been slow. In many cases, authorities are relying on DNA records because the intensity of the heat left little else. The government has announced a 300 million Hong Kong dollars relief fund and immediate housing for the displaced. But money cannot fix the psychological scarring of a city. Regulatory changes came swift and hard. The phase-out of bamboo scaffolding, originally a slow process, has been accelerated. Mandatory third-party audits for all renovation materials are now law. And a pilot program for IoT sensors, smart devices that detect heat anomalies on scaffolding, is being rolled out. But look around Hong Kong today. There are still dozens of estates wrapped in green. The same bamboo, the same netting. The residents inside those buildings are looking at Tai Po, and then looking at their own windows, wondering if they are next. We often tell ourselves that disasters like this are anomalies, freak accidents. But when you look at the chain of events at Wang Fuk Court, the aging building, the combustible renovation materials, the ignored complaints, the lack of sprinklers, you realize this wasn't an accident. It was a mathematical inevitability. Normalcy is fragile. 1 minute you are making tea in the apartment you've lived in for 40 years. The next, your world is on fire. We owe a debt of memory to the 128 people who lost their lives, and to Senior Station Officer Ho Wai-ho, who walked into the fire so others could walk out. But memory isn't enough. We need awareness. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you live in a high-rise that is currently under renovation? Have you seen workers smoking on the scaffolding? It might seem like a small infraction, but we've seen the price of that silence. And most importantly, does your building have working fire alarms and sprinklers? Do not assume they work just because they are there. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Check your smoke detectors tonight. Talk to your family about a fire escape plan. If the hallway is full of smoke, do you know what to do? It sounds simple. It sounds like a cliché. But on November 26th, those simple decisions meant the difference between life and death. Stay aware. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.
Our firefighting operation is almost complete. Despite that, we are still carrying out firefighting operation to 4 individual units, and damping down to various units of the 7 blocks are still in progress, so as to prevent the debris and embers from flaring up.
而家成間屋都係濃煙，我開唔到門㗎啦。而家都黑掹掹嘅，成間屋都係煙，唯有等啲消防員救咯。
政府亦都已經係即時進行分批巡查全港，正係進行外牆大維修而有搭建棚架保護網嘅樓宇。發展局亦都已經同業界會面，商討推進 金屬棚架去取代竹棚架嘅路線圖。
Good day, everybody. It's another episode of Common Sense with Van Silk. You know, common sense hits in all points of life, in every area and decisions that we make when we do things. But what I want to say is I want to go all the way across the world and send respect and condolences to all the families in Hong Kong who over the past 5 days been dealing with a fire that seemed like different reports saying somebody had a cigarette, somebody saying the fire started off a scaffold, somebody saying somebody set the fire. But these high-rise buildings where the fire spread from one building to the other. Now, just before I came on, give you a little clips of that fire. Now, these are high-rise buildings, and 7 buildings caught on fire. It just seemed like, did somebody know, was this an insurance move? Many lives, they calculated right now that about 55 people have perished. About 300 people are missing. But common sense would tell you when you use cheap material, if this is the case, this is the results of what's going to happen. If you don't inspect, if you don't have the inspectors inspect the property, because you know people will pay off inspectors just to pass inspections so they don't have to buy the quality material and everything, and you're putting people's lives in jeopardy. That's the same thing like with airplanes. You know, the government planes are searched and checked and looked at every day before they take off. Commercial flights, or they just do a mild inspection, boom, 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 boom. But when you start using cheap material, bootleg material, counterfeit material, those with the lowest contract who got approved to do this is what happened. Now, all these people that lost their lives, for what reason? Because common sense wasn't used. But I want you to sit back, pray for the families, the missing ones, during these times and days that they have to go through this trial and tribulation. Anybody has to go through trials and tribulations in what goes on in this world today. I mean, when we look at these big corporations and how they make their money, they get the cheapest contractor, they do the cheapest work, and this is what we have going on right now in Hong Kong. All these families are looking for family members. They have to find a way to relocate. But the fire started in one location and moved on to the other buildings. That is amazing. I guess the wind just made it go further and further. It's just like right now I'm walking the floor and it is windy. Windy, windy, windy. It's like 30 degrees right now. So I'm going to sit up here and play out of fair use the news report coming out of Hong Kong in reference to this fire. At the end of the day, it seems like the blame is being pushed on anybody who would be a lame duck. We're going to get a lame duck, and we're going to blame it on that person. So we ain't got to pay the insurance money or pay this or pay that. But common sense would tell you, stop trying to cut corners and use the proper material and use the best material, especially when you're putting people's lives in jeopardy, or you got people's lives in jeopardy. This is Van Silk with Common Sense. Y'all have a blessed day. Make sure you subscribe to Common Sense with Van Silk on mobile.com. Common Sense with Van Silk on YouTube. The link is going to be in the profile or in the post. It is cold out here. I got to go, but y'all check it out and rest in peace and God Condolences to all the families in Hong Kong who lost members. I gotta go.
On the afternoon of November 26, 2025, a sudden fire broke out in the Tai Po district of Hong Kong. An estate consisting of 8 buildings saw 7 of them engulfed in flames within just a few hours. As of the morning of November 27th, the fire is still not fully under control. The sky was filled with flames and thick smoke. As of 7 a.m. on November 27th, at least 44 people have died, including a 37-year-old firefighter. Additionally, 62 people were sent to the hospital, with 17 in critical condition. The casualty count is still being updated. In addition, 279 people have lost contact. Currently, 3 men are being investigated in connection to this fire. According to reports, at 2:20 p.m., the flames started from the bamboo scaffolding and nylon protective netting outside the Wang block of Wang Fuk Court. The strong winds caused the fire to spread quickly to nearby buildings, including the Hong Tai and Hong Sung blocks. Within just 40 minutes, the fire escalated from level 3 to level 4, and by 6:22 p.m., it reached the highest level, level 5. Videos circulating online show fierce flames and billowing smoke. The fire, driven by the wind, was unusually intense. 7 buildings stood like torches, with flames surging from the rooftops, reaching over 100 meters into the sky. The blazing fire turned half of the night sky into a glaring orange-red, visible from even several kilometers away. Objects continued to fall from the buildings, and explosions could be heard from the scene. On the ground, numerous fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars arrived to assist. Rescue workers quickly pushed the injured to medical care, while sirens, cries, and people's desperate calls for help mixed together. There were also family members of the missing, anxiously searching for their loved ones at the scene. A woman, speaking tearfully to the camera, said, "My whole family is inside, and I can't get through on the phone. I'm really afraid they've passed out." An elderly female resident, in tears, questioned angrily, "Why do the firefighters only have one hose? Why is there just one hose to put out the fire? It's been hours. I was here at 3 o'clock and saw it was still just one hose by 5 o'clock. Why are there more hoses? And why are there so few people putting out the fire?" She said that she didn't even have time to grab any of her belongings, including jewelry, documents, or decades of hard work. Everything was gone. Other residents nearby gathered, and one said the fire didn't start here at first, in the building by the sea, and the wind carried it over to this side, igniting the other buildings. This resident questioned why water wasn't sprayed on each building to prevent the fire when it first started, which might have prevented such extensive damage. Some residents also complained that the fire trucks arrived too late and there was not enough firefighting equipment, which allowed the fire to spread uncontrollably. Industry insiders have analyzed that the difficulty in battling the level 5 fire is mainly due to the complexity of vertical combustion in high-rise buildings. The fire spread rapidly on the scaffolding of the exterior walls, creating a chimney effect. Combined with the strong winds, this made firefighting extremely challenging. Wang Fuk Court was built in 1983 and is a public housing estate in the Tai Po district, with buildings 41 to 42 years old. It was part of Hong Kong's homeownership scheme, one of the government's subsidized sale housing programs, which aimed to provide affordable housing to low-income residents. Wang Fuk Court consists of 8 buildings, each with 31 floors, 8 units per floor, totaling nearly 2,000 units. According to the 2021 Hong Kong population census, the estate housed 4,643 people, with 36.6% being elderly residents aged 65 and above. This made evacuation and rescue efforts more difficult. Before the fire, the estate was undergoing extensive exterior wall repairs, so all 8 buildings were surrounded by scaffolding and nylon netting. These flammable bamboo scaffolds and nylon nets were the deadly triggers for the fire. Residents had long complained about workers smoking on the scaffolding and carelessly throwing cigarette butts, suspecting that the fire could be linked to this. A video circulating online shows a resident filming workers smoking near the scaffolding. While it's unclear if this was directly related to the fire, there were reports of many people capturing videos of workers smoking during the construction. Some netizens speculated that the fire started when an unextinguished cigarette was thrown down and ignited debris on the landscaping. The scaffolding, made of bamboo with flammable nylon netting, allowed the fire to spread quickly with the wind. According to the website of the Owners Corporation of Wang Fuk Court, as of November 10th, the 8 buildings were undergoing interior wall painting, exterior wall plastering, and stone paper coating, and the work was nearing completion. During the repairs, all the windows of the units were sealed with foam, making it difficult for residents to escape after the fire broke out. The dry and windy weather in Hong Kong at the time further hindered firefighting efforts. A video from the early stages of the fire shows that in just 1 minute, the flames rapidly spread up the scaffolding, with thick black smoke enveloping the entire estate. Debris fell continuously. In the video, people can be heard shouting, "The fire started! Why isn't the fire alarm going off? What's going on? Isn't anyone pressing the alarm? What are the workers doing? The whole scaffolding's on fire! Hurry, hurry! It's going to collapse! It only took a few minutes to burn through to the top." Around 2:45 p.m., the Hong Kong police received numerous reports from citizens. The cause of the fire was unknown, and many people reported difficulty breathing and being unable to leave the area. Several people also sought help, saying they could not contact their family members. At 2:51 p.m., Hong Kong Fire Services received the fire alarm report and continuously received distress calls from trapped residents. By 3:02 p.m., the fire was upgraded to level 3. The firefighters deployed 2 hoses and smoke diversion teams, attempting to suppress the fire from the outside. But the flames had already reached the building's interior, and thick smoke began seeping through the windows. Panic started to spread among the residents. Just 32 minutes later, at 3:34 p.m., the fire escalated to level 4. The fire had spread to the nearby Wong Tai and Wong Sung blocks. Explosion sounds began to be heard. Witnesses described the explosion noises as coming from paint cans or gas cylinders on the scaffolding. Residents waved from high-rise balconies, their cries drowned out by the wind. Some threw objects from the balconies to get the attention of rescuers. Around 4 p.m., the Tai Po District Community Hall was opened as an emergency registration point. However, by 6:30 p.m., the community hall had to be evacuated due to the spreading fire, and residents were moved further to a secondary school nearby. During one senior fire officer injured his leg, a firefighter suffered from heat exhaustion, and tragically, a firefighter lost his life. The firefighter who died was 37-year-old Ho Wai Ho, who had served at the Sha Tin fire station for 9 years and was part of the rescue team. At 6:22 p.m., the fire had reached the highest level, level 5. This marked the second level 5 fire since Hong Kong was returned by Britain to China in 1997, following the 2008 To Kwa Wan fire. By then, 7 buildings were affected, and another block suddenly caught fire. Flames shot up from the rooftop. At around 5 p.m., the police set up a temporary command center outside the emergency room at Nether Seoul Hospital for families awaiting news. By 8 p.m., around 30 people were still waiting outside for updates, with some wiping away tears and comforting each other. Ms. Zhang, a resident of Hongyan Block, said she saw the first fire at Wongchang Block and then heard the fire alarm in her building. Police and firefighters came to her door to evacuate the residents. Her family of 3 safely evacuated, and they planned to stay at a relative's house for the night. Mr. Zheng, a relative of a resident in Wangsong Block, expressed concern as an elderly family member was missing. Earlier, he had called but could not reach the elderly person, who couldn't descend the more than 10 flights of stairs. The relative who lived with them had gone out before the fire broke out. According to a report by Hong Kong 01, Mr. Zhang, a resident of the Wangdo Block on the 20th floor, said he first heard fire trucks at 2:45 p.m. and smelled a burning odor. Looking out of his window, he realized the fire at the 5th block across the street was very serious. He quickly gathered his belongings to leave, but he didn't hear the fire alarm go off. Later, as he was escaping down the stairs, personnel directed him to take shelter in the estate's park. When he looked from a distance, he noticed fire at the side of his unit's bathroom, unsure if the fire had spread to the inside. Mr. Lam, a resident of Wongkian Block on the 30th floor, recalled, "Around 3 p.m., I suddenly smelled a strong smoke odor, and then I heard the sound of the bamboo scaffolding exploding. When I opened the door, the hallway was already filled with smoke, and I couldn't see anything, so I had to escape immediately." Mr. Lam also mentioned that from the beginning, he never heard the fire alarm go off, not even once. He noted that his building, Wongkian Block, was separated by 2 other buildings from the first to catch fire. He thought there was some distance, but in just 20 minutes, the fire had reached his building. He said it spread so fast, it was terrifying. Mr. Lam has lived in Wang Fuk Court for over 40 years and had never experienced a fire. He admitted feeling very scared. When he left, he only grabbed his wallet and phone and didn't have time to take anything else, almost forgetting his glasses. He hoped the fire had only damaged the scaffolding near the window and that his unit would be fine. He also mentioned that the major renovation of the entire estate had started 2 years ago and was originally expected to be completed by April or May 2026. Now, he never imagined that before the renovation was finished, he would lose his home. For this devastating fire, analysts pointed out that it was not a natural disaster, but rather the inevitable result of a series of human errors, from the cause of the fire to the mishandling of the rescue efforts and the systemic issues behind it. First, based on initial judgments, the cause of the fire is believed to be workers smoking at high altitudes and carelessly discarding cigarette butts. According to online information, residents had repeatedly complained about workers smoking and improperly disposing of cigarette butts. These complaints have been ignored for over a year. One resident contacted the Hong Kong government departments, and in the Labor Department's response last year, they mentioned that the department was aware of the repair work at the site, managed by Hong Yi Construction Limited, and had been following up on the work safety since late July of that year. This reflects the negligence of Hong Kong's administrative departments. Second, residents question why the contractor did not use fire-resistant scaffolding netting during major repair works. Industry experts have suggested that some projects may take risks to cut costs using regular, non-fire-resistant nets instead. A fire-resistant net for scaffolding cost about 90 Hong Kong dollars apiece, while a regular net cost about 50 Hong Kong dollars. The fire-resistant net becomes brittle after being exposed to the sun and can only be used once, whereas non-fire-resistant net can be reused multiple times. Additionally, videos show that the scaffolding used for the exterior repairs were bamboo-based, which, even in mainland China, has been banned. Some online users suggested that this might be because Hong Kong's construction industry associations have a monopoly, and the traditional bamboo scaffolding industry is protected by unions and interest groups, which have refused to replace it with metal scaffolding for years. However, this claim has not been verified. Some online users posted that the Labor Department pointed out that the current safety regulations for construction sites in Hong Kong do not mandate fire-resistant standards for scaffolding nets or other materials. The Labor Department also stated that the repair work did not involve hot work processes, open flames, or flammable materials, and that appropriate firefighting facilities were available on site. Therefore, the risk of fire from the scaffolding net was considered relatively low. Thus, the combination of flammable bamboo scaffolding and poor quality nylon netting was a key factor in the difficulty of controlling the fire. Fourth, during the building's repairs, all windows were sealed with foam to prevent dust, which completely blocked the escape routes for trapped residents. This was also a major cause of the high casualties. Fifth, the building's fire alarms failed to function throughout the incident. Residents could not hear the alarm while trying to escape and could only rely on their sense of smell and shouting from neighbors. Sixth, there was a severe lack of response from the firefighters in the initial stages. Residents reported seeing only one hose fighting the fire for hours, and the equipment and manpower were clearly inadequate. Therefore, the fire department missed the critical window for controlling the fire. Each of these 6 points, individually, could have led to a severe incident. Now, with all 6 happening at the same time, they collectively caused this horrific fire, the largest in Hong Kong's history. On a deeper level, the cause lies in the accelerated mainlandization following Hong Kong's handover, especially since the implementation of the national security law. Some online users posted that mainland Chinese construction workers now dominate Hong Kong construction sites. Why? Because they're paid much less. Local Hong Kong workers require about 2,000 Hong Kong dollars per day, while mainland workers only ask half of that. It's also well known that mainland workers, especially in the construction industry, are habitual smokers and tend to carelessly discard cigarette butts. Additionally, posts on X revealed that the repair work at the Wang Fuk Court involved 330 million Hong Kong dollars, which has been controversial from the start. The project is managed by the Hong Kong Federation of Trade Unions Fujian faction, with pro-China contractors using substandard materials and cutting corners. The ex-user harshly criticized the Federation and the Hong Kong Communist Party government, calling for justice for the damage done. According to related information, Wang Fuk Court received a 330 million Hong Kong dollar repair plan in January of last year. On June 3rd, the owners received a letter from the Owners Corporation's lawyer demanding that each unit pay between 150,000 and 190,000 Hong Kong dollars in repair fees within 7.5 months. Payments made after the deadline would incur a 1% interest rate. These fees were significantly higher than those of similar estates in the same area, causing strong dissatisfaction among many owners. On June 14, 2024, the Owners Corporation held a management committee meeting. Owners who requested to observe the meeting were denied, accusing the corporation of operating in secrecy. Despite strong opposition from owners, the repair work was forced to begin in July. On July 5, 2024, over 5% of owners signed a petition demanding a special owners meeting to remove the corporation's chairman. However, they faced obstruction from both the authorities and the corporation. On September 6, 2024, after relentless effort, the owners succeeded in convening the special owners meeting, where a majority voted to dismiss the corporation. Unfortunately, the repair work had already started, making it impossible to reverse the decision. Some have also pointed out that after Hong Kong's return to China, the governance system has completely collapsed, and the mainlandization model has fully replaced the previously efficient accountability mechanisms. Safety inspections have become a mere formality, and people's needs are completely subordinated to political stability. A responsibility vacuum has formed between regulatory departments, such as the Labor Department, Buildings Department, and Fire Services Department, each shifting blame. Residents' complaints have gone unheard for years. The chief executive and senior officials have long neglected their duties, pushing public safety to the margins, and public trust in the government has evaporated. This issue has sparked heated discussions among the overseas Chinese community on the X platform. Previously, Hong Kong was very focused on full awareness, and after any major incident, elected legislators would always hold people accountable in the Legislative Council to prevent similar events from happening. But now, the police are in charge of governance. They don't understand people's livelihoods, don't understand the economy, and only shout slogans, while a group of loyalists supports them. Now in Hong Kong, national security overrides everything. Nothing else matters. Human lives? They're worthless. After the National Security Law's Article 21 passed, Hong Kong's Pearl of the East is no longer shining. This will certainly end quietly and without notice. I can bet on it. Truly, it's dictatorship everywhere and disaster everywhere. Most of the capable and wealthy people in Hong Kong have left. While I can't say that the remaining people are all incompetent or useless, the overall standard has certainly dropped sharply. And that's an undeniable fact. I hope they're doing well. It's the path they chose, and there's nothing we can do. After the fire broke out, public opinion online pointed directly at the highest levels of government. The current chief executive, John Lee Ka-chiu, must take political responsibility for the dual failures in firefighting and regulation, and immediately resign. The Wang Fuk Court fire is the culmination of 28 years of governance incompetence since Hong Kong's handover. The fire destroyed not just 7 buildings, but also the last shred of confidence that Hong Kongers had in their leaders. If the loss of dozens of precious lives does not prompt reflection from the government, Hong Kong's future will only grow darker.